There's been a lot of talk lately about the virus, the logistics, the physical impact, the vaccines, and a lot more. But what we are not actually talking about, and perhaps the most important thing to be actually talked about, is what's happening to us emotionally in our hearts. Most of the ideas here, I got it listening to Greg Braden, and I'm sure you know him. Awesome man. And this will really open you up to a new reality and a new positive future. In these times of uncertainty, there's a lot of anger, resentment, confusion, frustration, and there's a whole lot of depression around the world. For the first time, we as humans are simultaneously going through this powerful emotion called grief. We are all grieving a loss of a way of life and the loss of a certain life that we have been living for years and decades, and we have lost that now. Things won't be the same again, and that's inevitable, isn't it? And that loss is like any other loss. He even describes this loss as a form of death, loss of death, right? It's important to acknowledge this so that we can move through these times quickly and transform ourselves. We need to catch up. And this way of looking at it gives us a structure within which helps us to see what's happening to us right now. And by understanding this, we can quickly go through this grief immediately, fastly, and we embrace this, we acknowledge this, and accept that this is happening to us. And through this acceptance, we can completely be honest with ourselves instead of denying and fighting with the current crisis. We can move through it. Well, he also talks about the normalcy bias. Well, it's a psychological bias. Normalcy bias is where we attempt to live life as normal as we always have in the present circumstances, which is anything but normal, right? So it's a coping mechanism or an adaptive mechanism, which is also a form of denial. And by denial it's like refusing to look at what's happening right in front of you. And well, the reality of things is the world won't be the same as it was a few weeks, few months before. We can't go back to it because that world no longer exists. We are now entering into a new normal. And right now, it's just the transition period between the old normal and the new normal. You see this? And the question now you will ask is, what is the new normal going to look like? And the answer is, I don't know. And it's okay to not know because we don't know. But what we know is the choices we are making right now is determining what is emerging in the future. And so by embracing where we are, given the current situation, doing it in a healthy way and doing what we need to be doing will get us through this transition. And since we are all grieving in it together, each one of us processes grief very differently. And the most important dangerous type is the unresolved grief. Unresolved grief. A lot of people have a mental model of the world which was like a few weeks ago, a month ago, and they are hanging on to that picture which is becoming a cause of suffering, struggle and frustration around the world. And if we can let go of our idea of what the world should be, which is an idea from the past obviously, and instead be present to what could be in the future, then we are informing the future and creating a new future self. And I believe, and I agree with Greg, that we will be transformed to be better people, because this crisis has exposed our cracks and our flaws in our foundations, in our bodies, in our minds, in our consciousness. And the more you are looking at your own flaws, generally, since we live in a form of denial, and this is the time when our cracks and our flaws are exposed, and when you're actually looking at them, then you know what changes you have to make, and this is where transformation begins. And I think this is a huge silver lining which is happening out of this crisis, and we need to embrace that. Well, I think we should.